What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and I'm excited to give you a Top 10 Tuesday, this time actually on a Tuesday. My patrons voted, and it's my top 10 very rare magic items. We haven't done magic items in a little while, so it's nice to return to something that really kicked this series off and got legs under it a couple years ago. But first, I wanted to talk to you about the sponsor for today's video, the Wondrous Tome of Wands. This Kickstarter just launched today, so they have 29 days left to go, and they need your help reaching their funding goal. And a couple things to note is, one, it is 100 new magic wands for use in 5e. To get a PDF copy, it is only $10. To get a PDF copy and a code for Drive-Thru RPG's hardcover version, it's only $14. You do have to pay the shipping yourself, though. And it's magic wands, it's cursed items, it's actually sentient wands, which I don't believe we have in 5e. A bunch of loot tables for you to use, and then they also go into how it's balanced within the scales of 5e. There is also two other higher level versions, a $100 version where you get to design a wand, name it, come up with its general mechanics and the art for it, and it'll be illustrated in the book, or the $250 tier, which is everything I just discussed, but you also get a half-page art of a character of your choice wielding said wand, so you get character art as well. There's a promo you can download right now that gives you access to a couple of the different wands, which I'll showcase right here. And there's a variety of different ones, and I would just give you the Wand of Butterfingers, which is an uncommon attunement wand that basically, when you swish it through the air, you try to curse your enemy to have butter seep out of their hands, and they make a con save or have this seeping butter for a minute, which gives them disadvantage on weapon attacks and sleight of hand checks until then, and you can only use it one time, and that lasts for a minute. So this is pretty exciting stuff. I'll put a link in the description. It'll be a referral link, so it shows how many folks head over there from Nerd Immersion to show what kind of power me and my fan base have to help go and generate interest in different D&D related Kickstarters. So thank you to the Wondrous Tome of Wands for sponsoring this video. And before I dive into the actual top 10, I wanted to tell you what the stipulations are. So this has to be a very rare magic item, which I feel is pretty obvious. It has to be an officially published magic item by Wizards of the Coast. No third party, no homebrew, nothing like that. And lastly, it needs to be a non-consumable magic item and a non-variable magic item. And what I mean by that is I'm not doing potions, I'm not doing scrolls, I'm not doing any kind of one-off thing that goes away after you use it. I'm not going to do any of the different various books or tomes that increase an ability score, as those are always useful. And they're all, I think, also all very rare. And I'm not going to be doing anything that has a variation of it, where like there's a +1, +2, +3 version of it, and as it scales up, it gets into the very rare territory, right? So like, for example, a +1 weapon is uncommon, +2 weapon is rare, +3 weapon is very rare. And we saw a lot of this kind of stuff in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, where we had those class-specific magic items, and you could get a +1, +2, or +3 version, and depending on what it was, the +3 version was typically very rare. I wanted these all to be magic items that stand on their own and aren't part of a variable system. Number 10. The Bloodaxe, which comes to us from Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. If you were a fan of Critical Role Season 1, you would know that Grog wielded this Bloodaxe for quite a while throughout that series. It is also one of the few magic items that's not a sword, it's an axe. And I thought it was pretty cool overall as a +2 magical great axe that deals an extra d6 necrotic damage to creatures that aren't constructs or undead. So that's pretty solid. It's a d12 plus a d6, which is pretty great. And if you reduce a creature to 0 hit points with it, it gives you 10 temporary hit points. And it also goes on to even state that it once belonged to Grog Strongjaw of Vox Machina. It's just good overall. It's nice to see other weapons. Again, I would love to see treatment like this. Not necessarily blood-related treatment like the Bloodaxe, but just treatment of other unique and interesting magic items that aren't just swords. Number 9. The Animated Shield. This is a attunement magic item. It comes to us from the basic rules. And basically, it looks really cool, first of all. I really like the art of it. But it is a shield that as a bonus action, you can toss it to the air and then it animates. It leaps into the air, hovers around your space as if you were wielding it, and leaves your hands free. It remains animated for 1 minute until you use a bonus action to end it. You're incapacitated, at which point it falls to the ground or into your hand if you have a free one. So it basically allows you, if you've ever wanted to wield a two-handed weapon, but still get the +2 to your AC from the shield, this is how you do it. So you could still wield a maul, a greatsword, a great axe in 2 hands, a polearm, whatever, and then still have this shield hovering around you, providing you a +2 bonus to your AC, and then, you know, while not having that. The only downside is it is only a minute, so for extra long combats, it may get a little cumbersome because it drops to the ground. Or to your hand, reminder that 2-handed weapons you can hold in one hand. You just can't fight with them in one hand. That was clarified early on in the rules. But basically, yeah, I can hold a great sword in 2 hands. I need to hold 2 hands to fight, but I can hold it in one hand and still do other things with this hand. So I can catch my animated shield to then throw it back into the air next turn, or, you know, grab a holy symbol or whatever I need to. And then again, you can always play around with the animated shield by adding other benefits to it. It's an animated shield. Maybe it's a +1 animated shield. Maybe it's an animated shield of fire resistance, whatever it is. You can add things to it, but still keep the base mechanic of the animated shield. Number 8. The Staff of Power. This one obviously had to make it on the list. This requires attunement by a sorcerer, warlock, or wizard. It comes to us from the basic rules, and it is one of the 2 high-tier, very powerful staves that a spellcaster can wield. Not only is this a magical quarterstaff that has a +2 bonus to attack and damage rolls, so if you have to get into melee, unfortunately, you can maybe use that, but it also provides you a +2 bonus to your AC, all of your saving throws, and your spell attack rolls. This is pretty versatile, as all 3 of those are pretty useful. This is essentially like a +2, you know, cloak of resistance, but also a +2 bonus to your spell attack rolls. That's quite a bit of usefulness there, and it doesn't end. It also has 20 charges, which it gets 2d8 +4 back at dawn. It has that standard stuff. If you roll a 1, it loses its ability, except it still remains a +2 staff, quarterstaff. And if you roll a 20, it gets more charges back. And you can also expend 1 charge to deal a d6 force damage if you hit someone with it. But you can also expend the charges, probably more importantly, to deal and cast different spells. They use your spell attack, save, and DC, which is nice. 5 charges for Cone of Cold, 5 charges for a 5th level version of Fireball, 6 charges for Glow of Invulnerability, 5 charges for Hold Monster, 2 for Levitate, 5 for a 5th level Lightning Bolt, 1 for Magic Missile, 1 for Ray of Enfeeblement, and 5 for Wall of Force. Those are some of the best and most versatile spells that any spellcaster can get access to, so I would highly recommend, if your option is out there to get a Staff of Power, you get it. And it also has the Retributive Strike ability, which is usually a last-ditch effort where you break the staff over your knee or some solid surface, and it essentially explodes and does like a mini Nova explosion damage. So it says it's destroyed and explodes in a 30-foot radius. There's a 50% chance that you instantly travel to a random plane of existence, avoiding the explosion. If you fail to avoid it, though, you take force damage equal to 16 times the number of charges in the staff. And then everyone else in the area must make a dex save, and then you can see there's this table here that shows how far away you are and how much damage you take. Again, not something you typically want to do, but it's an option you have if you really need to do some Nova damage really quick. Number 7. The Blast Scepter comes to us from Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and it is an extremely useful magic item. Not only can it be used as an arcane focus, it gives you resistance to both fire and lightning damage, and as an action, you can cast a Thunderwave spell at 4th level with a spell save DC of 16 without expending a spell slot. It does not have any limitations to it only being used by a spellcaster, so there's no reason a fighter or paladin, barbarian, whatever, couldn't use this. It flat out always has, as long as you're attuned to it, you get that resistance to fire and lightning damage, and that is unlimited 4th level Thunder Waves with a DC 16. So again, if you're not a spellcaster, that's still a sizable DC, and a 4th level Thunder Wave is, I think, 5d8 thunder damage? Is that right? Thunder Wave is 2d8 plus an extra one for each level above. Yeah. So you're dealing 5d8 thunder damage in a 15-foot cube. So you have a lot of options there. I think this is pretty powerful. The only downside is it is contained in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, so your DMs may not have access to that book or know that it's even there. Number 6. The Candle of Invocation. It is pretty useful, but it does have to be tied to your alignment. So this is one of those rare items out there that has anything to do with alignment in 5e. But basically, you can light it as an action, and then after 4 hours, it's destroyed. But you can snuff it out early if you have to. You deduct the time burnt in 1 minute increments. It sheds dim light in a 30-foot radius. Any creature whose alignment matches the alignment listed from the candle itself makes attack rolls, saving throws, and ability checks with advantage. And in addition, a cleric or druid who is in that light can cast first level spells they have prepared without expending any spell slots, though it has to. The spell is effect is if it's cast at first level. So it can't be upcast, but that could be unlimited healing spells or low-level damaging spells as long as you're inside the light lit by the candle. But when you use it for the first time, you can cast the gate spell with it and immediately destroy it as well if you need access to that. Number 5. The Arcane Propulsion Arm, which comes to us from Eberron Rising from the Last War. This requires attunement, and it says by someone missing a hand or an arm. It basically is a prosthetic arm. And we've seen these before. There's I think a non-attunement version that just basically functions like a standard arm if you put it in place. This, however, has additional benefits, which is it is a magical melee weapon. It deals a d8 force damage on a hit and has the thrown property, a normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60 feet. It detaches, flies at the target, and then immediately flies back to you. So in any movie or thing where you've seen someone do sort of a rocket punch where like the arm shoots off, punches someone, and then flies back. That's what this does, but it flies back immediately, so if you have multiple attacks, you could fire off your Arcane Propulsion Arm. It says it is a magical melee weapon, but it doesn't say what you need to do it, so it says it's a thrown weapon, so based on that, I believe it is a strength-based punch, and it also deals force damage, which is something that's not easily resisted in 5e. Number 4. Duskcrusher comes to us from Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. This is a Warhammer. Not only does it have the bonus action to have radiance and kind of fill and make the Warhammer head, which emits bright light in a 15-foot radius and dim light in another 15 feet, it is a +2 Warhammer that deals radiant damage instead of bludgeoning damage, and an undead hit by it takes an extra 1d8 radiant damage. So it is essentially almost the brother to the Sunblade, in that the Sunblade is essentially a longsword that does something similar. This does pretty much the same thing, except instead of being a longsword, it's a Warhammer. But it also has one additional benefit. While you're holding Duskcrusher and its radiant head is active, you can use an action to cast the Sunbeam spell with a DC of 15, and it can't be used again until the next dawn. So that is sort of the benefit of it, but I do believe it says that it is sunlight. No, it says it emits bright light. This light is sunlight, yeah. So the difference being the Sunblade is only a rare weapon, but has pretty much the same damaging things that you see here. But it has the very rare tag because you are also able to shoot Sunbeam from it, which is a 6th level spell that does persist for up to a minute. I really like this one. I think it's pretty cool. I'd like to see more kind of lightsaber-y type weapons like this in 5e. Especially like a light whip would be really cool. Number 3. The Cauldron of Rebirth from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. This requires attunement by a druid or warlock, but I really like this because it has a lot of versatility. So it is a tiny pot, first of all, to start. It can be used as a spellcasting focus for druid spells, and it is suitable for using it to cast the scrying spell. And also, when you finish a long rest, you can create a potion of greater healing from it that lasts for 24 hours. You can also, as an action, cause this thing to grow large enough for a medium creature to crouch inside it. You can choose to revert it to its normal size as an action, and then just kind of shunts them out of it. It's not discussed here, but in theory, you could make this thing medium-sized to crouch inside it to give yourself cover when you portable cover that you didn't have previously. But one of the main reasons you might do that is if you place the corpse of a humanoid creature into the cauldron and cover the corpse with 200 pounds of salt. Now, you may be saying to yourself, where do I get 200 pounds of salt? That's a good question, and that's really dependent on how your DM handles material components. Because 200 pounds of salt is only 10 gold pieces. So if your DM lets you just hand over gold and take it out of your inventory to cover for material components, that's an option for you. And then if they're in there for at least 8 hours, the salt is consumed and they're brought back to life as if using the Raise Dead spell. Once used, it can't be used again for 10 days. That specific ability. However, you can still make it medium-sized, you can still use it for scrying and make the Potions of Greater Healing. This is a slightly different kind of healing-based magic item, and it's also nice that it can be gotten for a Warlock as well. I think that's pretty cool. Number 2. The Warlock's best friend, the Illusionist's bracers that come to us from Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, are exceptionally powerful for one ability. While wearing these bracers, whenever you cast a cantrip, you can use a bonus action on the same turn to cast that cantrip a second time. This is ridiculous for things like a Warlock, although it has a lot of use for a variety of different classes, depending on what you have access to. But considering a Warlock's general MO is to cast Eldritch Blast, this would allow you to cast Eldritch Blast as an action, and then follow it up with Eldritch Blast again as a bonus action. These are also exceptionally useful for someone like a Blade Singer with the new rules, where with your extra attack you can make an attack using a cantrip followed by a melee weapon attack. You could then use a bonus action to cast that cantrip again, giving you that benefit of more attacks in a round. Again, this could be used for multiple instances of Spare the Dying, multiple, Toll the Deads, whatever the case may be. Any spellcaster with access to cantrips will have a use for the Illusionist bracers, though some will just be able to make better use of it. Number 1. The Shield of the Uven rune, and I slept on this one. I didn't realize how good it was, which is why I put it here at number 1. This one comes to us from Waterdeep Dungeon of the Mad Mage. And first of all, if you attune to this, it's a shield, so it provides you a +2 to your AC based off that. It gives you flat-out immunity to cold damage. There are very few things in 5th edition that grant you immunity to a damage type, and this is one. But it's not like it does just that. It also has Deadly Rebuke. Whenever a creature hits you with a melee attack, you can use your reaction to just deal 3d6 necrotic damage to them. They get no saving throw. It doesn't have a limit to how far the range could be. Normally, a lot of the things that deal retributive damage are within a melee attack within 5 feet. No, you could be fighting an octopus with a 35-foot tentacle reach, and if it hits you, you can deal 3d6 necrotic damage to it as a reaction. Again, there are not too many things in the game that have retributive reaction-based damage, especially on people that can wield shields specifically, so this gives you that. And then on top of that, you can cast Bane from the shield with a DC of 17, which is pretty awesome to start, but get this, it doesn't require concentration, the Bane you cast from the shield, and it lasts for a minute. That's once per short or long rest, so that's every short rest, you get a DC 17 Bane spell that is non-concentration, plus the immunity to cold damage, plus the reactionary 3d6 necrotic damage. And then it also has the Gift of Vengeance feature. I don't think it shines too well to do this, but you can trace the shield's magic to a non-magical weapon by tracing the rune onto them. It takes 8 hours as long as the two are within 5 feet of each other. And at the end, the shield is destroyed and the rune is etched or burned into the chosen weapon. The weapon becomes a rare item that requires attunement. It's a +1 weapon that increases to a +3 when the weapon is used against one of the following creature types chosen by you at the time of the creature or the weapon's creation: aberrations, celestials, constructs, dragons, elementals, fae, fiend, giants, or undead. Interesting that they don't work on oozes or beasts, or plants. But anyway, I think I'd rather have immunity to cold damage, a free bane, and retributive necrotic damage than a +1 weapon that becomes a +3 weapon when wielded against a specific type of creature. That being said, that also gives us an interesting insight into a potential other magic item that we could homebrew, which is a +1 weapon of a given type that becomes a +3 weapon when used against a certain type of creature, right? So we can easily make an aberration slaying, halberd that's a +1 halberd that becomes a +3 halberd when used against aberrations. That's a pretty standard thing to do, and in older editions, we are pretty used to having weapons of ogre slaying, of giant slaying, whatever. We have a couple examples of that in 5e, like the Giant Slayer weapon and the Dragon Slayer weapon. This would be an option to maybe be something not as, maybe uncommon that does things like that. So there you go, folks. That is my top 10 very rare magic items. I was pretty excited to go back into this. It's been long enough that doing a magic item list is fun again. I was doing those consistently for weeks on end for a while there, and now I got a little bit of a break, so it was nice. Plus, we're talking higher level stuff, and I thought I tried to grab some ones that people would not have seen or maybe didn't even know about, some exotic and eccentric ones. There's obviously a ton of very useful, very rare magic items, but most of us in our gaming lifetime in 5e will likely only maybe see 1 or 2, let alone all of these. But, you know, if they're spread out across the party, and everybody in the party gets a very rare magic item, then hey, everybody wins. I also looked at doing the tattoos, but I still don't feel like doing the magic tattoos makes sense to me to be magic items, even though I know that they are. So thank you once again to the Wondrous Tome of Wands for sponsoring this video. I do hope they make success in their Kickstarter goal, and hey, we can be a part of that together. Again, also, that's a pretty decently priced amount of art, plus what you also get on top of that. Thank you again to my patrons over on Patreon who voted for this to be the topic for this week. They get to vote every week, or at least every other week, as we take the winner of the given week's poll, and then the runner-up becomes the following week. That's the example with today's video. So later this week, I'll be putting up a poll for what we should do for next week. So if you'd like to be a part of that, you can go over and join the Patreon. So thank you once again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.